All righty. Usually I hear it say you
It
are
did.
being recorded. I guess. Okay,
It
I
did.
guess because I'm on my phone that it didn't hear it. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about tonight is the intersection widget, which you may or may not be familiar with. Let me share my screen here. Just a. All righty. Can you see that, guys and gals? Just you see the
You see it?
meetup thing? Okay. So we're going to talk about intersection widgets, when and when not to use it, and I'll get to that in a sec. And we're going to spend a little bit of time on introductions. I think we have introductions, and then we'll go into we've kind of already done the introductions and when to use and not use an intersection widget. And then if people have any questions about Elementor and they're trying to do something that they can't do or can't figure out, then we're here to help with that. So let's jump into intersection widgets.
Hold on, go back to
Let's
y'all's
think.
pictures down there. How'd y'all get such fancy pictures for your profile? You and Brian look really snazzy.
Well, that's from several years ago. I had a professional photographer do it, and Brian, he's naturally photogenic.
Same thing. I had a professional.
You did yours
It looks like
professional
a
too?
It looks like a picture that might be on eHarmony or something. You know, Mr. Studley. So, but
You
it
found me on
was.
it.
So,
You done exposed my eHarmony page now.
So, but we're going to go through. I'm going to go through 3 uses of intersection widgets that I guess at some level you could say that were incorrect usages, but they weren't incorrect when the intersection widgets came out. It's just a basic header, and then we've got a 4-column section with these service areas, and then we have another section that has 4 logos in it. And these are all used with intersections. And we can take a look at that. See, we have, this is the header thing, and might be helpful to look at it in the navigator. I discovered something interesting today, because one of the issues that why it matters with intersections and why nowadays we think we've decided that we don't want to use them too much is because they add a whole lot of stuff to the code of a page. I mean, if you were to look at all this stuff that's just to make up this simple little thing here, that's a lot of columns, sections, and every time there's a column, every time there's a section, there's a div thrown in there, so it makes the page more complicated. So what we're going to explore are ways to simplify that. And for instance, how we'll do that, get this out of the way so I can see here. In this first navigation, it currently is comprised of 2 sections, 4 columns, and 3 widgets. Once we're done with it, it's only going to have 1 section, 1 column, and 3 widgets. And these service areas, make sure that's the right one. Okay. We've got way it is now. We've got, see, that's a section, that's a section. We've got a column here, got a column here, column here, column here. So we've got 2 sections, 6 columns, and 6 widgets, because actually, that's the wrong one. So we've got 12 widgets, because each one of these is a widget. But people, when your people are first starting out, it's a logical thing to do. I want to have something that looks like this. So, I'll add the graphics and the text and the heading and the text and put them in 4 columns. And now they'll have the inside widget. We could, although this could certainly be done in just a single one, but we'll get back to that. but I've seen this done this way. And I sometimes tutor people on with their Elementor projects, and I've seen people go about doing it this way. And then on this one, the clients we serve, we're using 2 sections, 6 columns, and 6 widgets, and we're going to bring it down to 1 section, 1 column, and 2 widgets. So we're going to save a lot of what they call, we're going to clean up what they call the DOM. And help me out, Sharon, or anybody else feels willing to. I can never remember what DOM stands for.
Document
Object Model.
There you go. Can always remember that the O's for object. So first of all, we mentioned this earlier, but for those that weren't there, I want to apologize for having to reschedule the meetup, because a week or 2 prior to the meetup, I came down with some pretty powerful, strong bug, not COVID, but might as well have been. It felt like sometimes. But towards I was getting over it, but by the time that it came up for us to do the meetup, I had been coughing so bad and my throat was so kind of scratchy. I couldn't talk for much time without either losing my voice or getting really raspy or breaking out into a coughing fit, and that was worse. So we just decided to reschedule, and thanks for Brian for doing that for me. He took care of rescheduling it, and so that's kind of the backstory on that. But before we get into the demo here, I want to talk about the intersection widget. For those that might not have been in the Elementor world for a long time, there was a day, and I don't know how long ago it was, maybe a year and a half. I don't know how long intersection widgets have been around, but for a long, long time, users were pretty much screaming from the rooftops, we need to be able to nest sections inside of sections, because of some layouts that are more complicated to do that. And there were plugins that could do that, but they said that Elementor should be able to do that. So everybody was, we need this. So Elementor created it and added the intersection widget. Then everybody was happily going along doing that. And then a year and a half ago, maybe not that long, maybe it's just a year, might have been just last year. I think it might have been May of last year. Google came out and started really banging the speed drum on the page speed was going to make a big difference in your rankings. And then also the sort of user experience was going to play a role in there. And so doing anything and everything to speed up your website, make pages load faster, became a top priority. And these intersection widgets really added a whole lot of extra code to a page, more than you might be surprised. And for probably a lot of average users, it doesn't make that big a difference. But when people are in the web business, people will spend hours trying to shave off 300 milliseconds of load time. I mean, some people are just fanatical about it. But it added a whole bunch of extra code. And so Elementor was getting bad rap for slowing down websites. So Elementor went on a program of optimizing their code. They've done it incrementally in different things. And one of the things they had introduced, and I can't recall when they did, but they added some features that were just little baby steps towards something that's coming all over the horizon that I'll touch on at the end, is using Flexbox. and Flexbox is a very innovative, and it can be challenging to understand. Well, at least it was when it first came out. It's been around several years, maybe as long as 4 years now, but as a coding thing. But it allows you to design responsive areas with just kind of one setup, and then it behaves and flows in ways that you don't have to mess with quite so much. It's really, really awesome. But anyway.
Hey, Carrie, I think Flexbox came out right about after Bootstrap came out. So
the original, yeah. I was really excited about it. Trying to remember if I had started. I might not have started using WordPress. I don't think it's been around. I've been using WordPress almost 10 years now, so I don't know if Flexbox has been around that long or not, but anyway, so, and we'll use some of those things, we'll use it in this header thing here in a second, so I'll show you how that works. So let's go ahead and show you what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to take these 3 sections and I'm going to change them to where that they don't use intersections. So let's take a look at what we got here. And so one of the things that's, you can see here, that's kind of a problem because it overlays it, but this is the navigator. If you're not familiar, the navigator can be your friend. And one of the things I think I mentioned earlier that I didn't recognize was there before, but you can expand out the whole list of sections or collapse them, or you can do them individually. So anyway, this is the section. Brian, are you seeing the people in the waiting room? Got it.
Yes, I got it.
Okay, cool.
Just trying to verify their RSVP first. You can keep going.
Gotcha. Okay. So, so anyway, this is the section. I've got it selected. That's for that particular thing. What I'm gonna do is, you can do this in the navigator too, not just on the page. I'm gonna right click the section and I'm gonna duplicate it. Okay, so that'll go, and I'm gonna add a little margin to the top of this, just so we get some space. We go to add margin, go to advanced, we can just unlock that, and then I'm going to add 50 pixels margin. We have some space. Close that down. Okay, let me scroll down to my little bit of notes here. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the intersection widget. Now the intersection widget is what you see with the blue line all the way around. I'm going to delete that entirely. So I'm going to right, well, I don't have to. I'll hit the X and it'll go away. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to these widgets that are in here, because what we've got here is we've got a section with another section with 3 columns in here. And certainly you could have done this with the 3 columns in a section, but I've seen people do this. But even then, if you had even then you could have reduced it, and I'll show you how. So I'm going to right click on the pencil. This is for the site logo, and I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to take that and I'm going to drag it down here. Then I'm going to go to the little menu and I'm going to right click it and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to take the duplicate and I'm going to drag it right here. And we're still in this section, but you notice it goes underneath. And then I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to drag it underneath that. Okay, so we're all in the same section, but it's certainly not looking the way we want. So what we can do is we can select the first widget, and we're going to go to advanced. We're going to go to positioning, and then we're going to go width and inline. Now, before I do that, notice that blue outline that goes all the way there. This is taking up the whole width. But if we go to inline, notice how the blue little outline just takes up the space only for the widget itself. So we'll go here and we'll do that. Same thing. Select it. We'll go to advanced. We'll go to positioning, width, inline. And now we see it shrinks down to just have that. And then we'll do the same thing here. We're going to go to positioning. No, that's not the right. We're still in that other one. Okay. Advanced, positioning, and we'll go inline. Okay. So everything's all squunched up together. Well, so not quite what we're looking to do. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the column section, and in the layout, I'm going to go vertical alignment, because see, they're not really even close to lining up vertically. So I'm going to go to vertical alignment. I'm going to go to middle, and that kind of brings them kind of all in the line here. And then here's where Flexbox-like behavior is already in Elementor. It's in horizontal align. So what we're going to end up with is space between, and that just spreads them out. Puts the one on the right at the end, put on the left in the left, and this in the center. We'll deal with that in a second because it's not really centered, but that's because of this is wider than that. But we'll deal with that in a sec. But there are other options. There's start, which kind of is, it just starts there and goes. Then there's center, which everything's jammed up, but in the center. And then there's end, which just takes it to the end. And then there's space between, which we've seen. Then there's space around. And what that does is it takes each item and it says, okay, I'm going to take this space here and put equal amounts of take that space out to here, and that space to here, and that space to here, and then so on and so forth. And then there's space evenly, and that space makes the space in between everything the same. But we want it to go to the edges, so we're going to go space between. Okay? So now, in the column, I'm going to add some padding, because you'll notice it's not really lined up with the way that the previous one was, because we had some padding for this column, and we had some padding for this column. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go to advanced, and I'm going to add 20 pixels padding. And now we're looking very close to what we had. And so the way to deal with this, and this is not the most elegant of solutions, but this was one I saw one of the trainers at Elementor do, and it works. Once the full bore Flexbox comes out, I don't think we'll have to deal with this. But so we're going to take this and we're going to go to the advanced. I'm going to unlock the margins. And I'm going to take a left margin and make a negative margin and pull it back in line with this. So I'm going to scoot up. Come on. It's 158. Okay, so now we opened this up here, but they're virtually identical. But if we look at the structure of it, we've gone from, what did we say? We've gone from 2 sections. Nope, that's the wrong one. 2 sections, 4 columns.
Carrie, if you pull up the navigator, we can see in the little setup how much you removed.
Yep, we sure can. Let's see. Okay, here's the first section. Here's the second section. So we've gone from that to that, which is pretty good. And then when you look at the code of the page, you'll see there's a lot. If we were to go through and look at the code, we'd see a whole lot less divs involved. So we'll go, and I'm going to delete that. I'm going to get rid of the 50 margin. So now we're good to go with that. Then we have this one. Let's see what we got going on here. We've got a section with an intersection inside a column, and intersection has 4 columns. And this particular one, I'm showing, I was dealing with a customer a couple of weeks ago, and they had set something up like this. And when they were trying to get responsive and stuff, it was getting all wonky on them. So we talked about this. So I've seen this done. So I use this as an example. So in this one, we've got 2 sections, 5 columns, and 12 widgets. And we're going to reduce it to 1 section, 1 column, and 4 widgets. So we're going to duplicate the section, right-click, duplicate. Okay. And I'm going to delete the intersection. So now we just have section and the column. And then I'm going to add an image box widget to the column. And we just type in here, and we're going to slide that puppy right in there. And this, in some circumstances, you could use the icon box widget, but not in this instance because we've used images here. These are ping images I hijacked from a site I built 3 or 4 months ago, and with the icon box widget, you can have custom icons, but they have to be SVGs, and I didn't want to screw around with that. So, but this works just pretty much the same. So this is an image box widget. So we'll change the image. We're going to pick our little guy there, and we're going to change this text, this to service area 1. Area 1. And we got the different font size here. This is bigger here. I just know from looking previously, this is 28 pixels. So I'm going to go into the style, and I'm going to go to content, and I'm going to go, there's the title and the typography, and I'm going to change it from 40 to 28. And then I'm going to, I think that's pretty much the same lorem ipsum. So let's see here. I think the spacing here is a little less than here. So I'm going to go back to my style and then my image, and that's yeah, I'm going to go down. What happens? Yeah, take it down to 5, and that's pretty close, I think. So we've got our little image box widget, and of course you could link this to something if you wanted. Let's see, where in services. Okay, so now I'm going to go click the widget, and I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to go to positioning. I'm going to do something different this time. I'm going to go to width. I'm going to go to custom. And then I'm going to go to percentage. I'm going to set it 25. Because we have 4 columns, and of course 25% is 1/4 of 100%. So we've created that, and then I just right click and duplicate, or we can hit Command D or Control D, And what we need to do is we need some padding. So let's see, what padding do we have in here? 20 all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to do that. 20 all the way around. I do the, nope, I did it on the wrong one. Here. That look about right? Okay, so I'm going to take this. I'm going to copy. I'm going to paste the style. Y'all familiar with that? Paste style. I also notice that this is centered text and that's left line text. So let's go back to, we may have to, we'll go to content. Content, let's see, we're going to, ooh, don't want that. I guess I missed that before. I guess in the image box, this text is going to be centered. We can, through CSS, we could change it, but photography description, let's see. Okay. No. Okay. All right. So we've got, and then of course we can go in and change out the graphics and the text and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times these boxes are linked to something. You might say, you know, web development services, and then you could have a link to your web development services page and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to go in and change all of those. Okay, then our last example. This is, you see this all the time on websites where people have clients they've served and they have a list of logos. First of all, let me get rid of this. And then so we're going to take this and take it from 6 sections, oh, wrong one, clients from served. 2 sections, 6 columns, and 6 widgets to 1 section, 1 column, and 2 widgets. So let's duplicate the section. And then we're going to delete the intersection. Make sure I'm doing this right, because I went through and made notes so that I didn't get hung anywhere. Delete the intersection. And then, so we've got a section and a column. So now I'm going to add an image carousel widget. So I go up to the, I've heard people, you know, people talk about this as the icon menu. I've heard people lately calling this the Rubik's Cube icon. So I guess that's what people are calling it now. So we're going to go to the image carousel widget. Drag that in there. It'll go. Okay. So, but to do that, we have to create a gallery. This says no images selected. So we're going to click on this. And I just happen to have those logos in here. So I'm going to, I made some notes ahead of time to know which order to do this so that I don't have to move things around after the fact. Okay, so of course you realize, or may not, that if you create a gallery and you're in the wrong order, you can just drag these around. But I think this is going to be the order we want. So go there. And okay, it looks like they're in the right order, but it's a mess. What's going on? Okay, so first of all, let's take, because right now it's only showing the thumbnail, the image size is a thumbnail. Well, that's too small. So we're going to go to medium. And then, of course, that's too big, but we're going to fix that by saying, how many slides do we want to show? There's 5, so we'll say 5. And then how many slides to scroll? So when it scrolls, you know, sometimes these things, the whole thing goes, and sometimes it's 1 or 2. We're going to go with 1. And then we're not going to stretch the image. Navigation, I'm not going to have any on this. They'll take away those dots. Okay, and then let's see, we're going to navigation stuff. So we're going to go to style. We're going to go vertical, align middle. It'll line all these up, at least vertically across the way. And then we're going to go to spacing, go to custom. I'm going to put in 60 pixels. And I just played around with it to arrive at that number, but that puts 60 pixels in between each item. And one of the added benefits of this is this scrolls, whereas this is static, this will scroll. So, can't cover everything, style column advanced. So I'm going to go to this column, because if you notice, this is sticks out more over here, so we don't quite have things lined up right. So I'm going to go to this column, and I'm going to go to the advanced, and I'm going to increase the padding on the left and right by 10. So I'm going to go at 30, and we're locked. So let me go back to 20, unlock it, and then I'm going to go 30 and 30. And this out. Big. Okay. So that's kind of how that works. And then let's, using Guy's suggestion, let's start here. We can expand this section and this intersection. Wait a minute. Okay, there we go. That. So we have, I'm reading this right. Yep, we've got all of this up here. And then we've got all of this. We basically have one section, one column, a heading, and an image carousel, where we have one section, a column, a heading, an intersection, a column with stuff in it. So you can see how quickly this stuff adds up, and it saves lots of, and you can, you know, you've seen some pages that are, you know, layer after layer of stuff, and it could just blow up on you if you weren't doing it properly. So today, you know, and in the title of this meetup, I put, or we put, when to use and not use intersections. And I went back and looked at websites that I built over the last few years, and with the current state of affairs of Elementor, I really can't come up with an instance where it was the appropriate thing to use an intersection. Somebody has an example, jump right in there, but I couldn't find a situation to where I could work around using an intersection with the tools that are now built into Elementor. And so, let me get rid of this, the old version, and we will update that. And we'll look at it. And so, a much cleaner page in terms of the code, the back end. But so that's I'll go back to edit with Elementor. Now, we talked about the history of the intersection of how much it was in demand for the longest of time. And then they came out with it, and everybody's saying, oh, cool, now we can do all this extra stuff. And then Google started banging the site speed drum, and there was all these things about, well, you need to increase your, if you ever looked at the analysis of your, when you do site speed tests, whether it's GTmetrix or Google Speed Insights and the like, they'll talk about, well, your DOM is too big, which we identified earlier is a document object model. It means the code that builds out the page, it gets just ginormous sometimes. And these are efforts to make that smaller, which makes the page load faster. And now they're coming out with something new. We talked about a little bit of this at the top of the meetup. They have come out with a Flexbox container experiment, and this is still, it's not 100, at least the last time I was checking into it. Still, like it's an experiment. It's not meant for production, and I don't even think is it out of alpha? Does anybody know, or is it in beta?
It's in beta.
Okay. So, well, that's good because that's getting closer to prime time. But anyway, this article talks some about it. I'll put this article in chat if I can here. Let me move this somewhere else. Okay. This article link and chat. So there's the link to that. And then if you want to learn more about the experiment, because you have to get they also have 3.6 development version is out too, I think. And they've got some, they may have tweaked this some as well. But for those of you who are familiar with Paul C. at WP Tuts, he has a little video on it on YouTube you might want to check out. And that's the link to that. And then he mentions this other fella who runs a channel called Element How that goes into much more depth, granular, and explanation about the Flexbox container. And that's the link to that. So if you're interested, just check that out. And I think that's the wave of the future when it comes to these types of things. And it will allow us to do more complex layouts without bogging down the page. And there's also some characteristics of Flexbox that makes it much easier to transition from viewport to viewport, that it kind of does some automatic things for you that in the past you'd have to go in and change some CSS or rearrange things. So I'm looking forward to it. It's one of the biggest improvements I've heard about Elementor doing in a long, long time. So,
Gary, I got to add too. The thing that always, I didn't realize it, but using all those intersections, and if you don't like go to the site settings and zero out things between widgets or something like that, or set it was always like double, like all this trouble trying to like figure out where these extra space was coming from between columns, between widgets, and that's this is the other thing that makes me excited about this, is that I don't have to figure out all that added stuff that you would get with all those additional sections and stuff. And it just made it really difficult to control a thing. And you have to go through a lot to zero it out or figure out what it was.
Well, for those of you that don't know, Elementor has a default between widgets and containers. There's always a 20 pixel padding in between there. That's why I have kind of like I call a reset CSS that resets all of that, so it takes out that extra padding when I'm developing. But if you don't do that, you do have all of that spacing. You can get rid of it by taking out the no gap setting, use the no gap setting, and that will remove the extra padding. But if you, Carrie, if you go back to, or highlight one of your sections, I guess, you highlight your section, and notice that it's not, I don't see it here, but usually you'll see a setting. Oh, go to the column, I think. Go to the column. It might be under the column. Yeah, see the setting where it says
the widget space,
and it's just in a 20. So if you, it's by default, it's all set throughout Elementor, no matter what you use, any widget, any container, or anything, you're going to have a 20 pixel padding around all of it. Margin or padding, I can't remember which one is set, but
it's for the, I think it's the gap between widgets, and I think what they do, the way they accomplish that, may be wrong, but just from what I've seen, is it looks like they put a 10% padding or whatever around, but when they're together, the 10 and 10 add up to 20.
Right.
And I think that's how they come up with that.
But you can also go turn that off. If you go, I think it's in site settings, you can set that default. Where is it? Might be, in site settings.
It might be in the Elementor settings. Let's go to the basic Elementor settings.
Oh, it's on the page settings.
It's on the page settings.
It's on the site settings,
Yeah.
So you got to be back on a page.
All righty, let's take a look here.
But instead of doing that, I just write a CSS that clears everything when I, it's something, it's a snippet that I have that I pull in all of my projects.
Can you put that? Can you cut and paste that into the chat, Sharon, please? If you can.
It's a lot of code, but I can do that.
Just giving away the secret sauce.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
Where is that? It's on it's down on
go to the
additional settings, is it?
No,
I don't think so.
It'll take you back,
right.
No.
It's somewhere there. I can't remember. It's not typography. Is it background? I can't remember where it is now.
User preferences.
Where's that?
I don't know. Sometimes they move things around between versions.
Right.
I've not messed with it much because I actually tend to add more spacing in between my widgets than out of the box, just to.
Well, for me, when I would sort of design a page, and then I go to another page, and I'd have some similar areas but different areas that I'd reuse, and then trying to get them all to line up correctly or just have it, and then that just drove me crazy. So.
Yeah. Well, you have what you kind of, I guess we all have to do is come up with our own sort of design system. And it sounds like that's what Sharon has done. And like when I first, early on in my time of building Elementor websites, I learned a lot from Dave Foy, the UK developer. Although now he's pushing
No,
Webflow.
Webflow, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
taking that class.
Yeah, I'm
I
interested in
love
it.
Webflow.
I just am so invested into Elementor. It's like
Well, I am
it's
too,
intriguing.
but yeah, we shouldn't talk about Webflow since we're Elementor, but I like it.
Yeah, that's true.
I like
Well,
it.
we'll talk about that, and hopefully when there'll be a meetup, one in a live WordCamp next year that we could actually talk in person. So, but anyway, so we've gone over those.
Okay.
For those of you who missed it, that were late joiners, we recorded it, so you can check it out the next day or two.
I think
Did
there's a
you
limit
have?
on how much I can put in here, so I'm gonna have to do two. So this isn't all of it. So let me do. It's cutting me off. So,
Sure.
Sure.
so let me see. Let me see if I get the rest of it in there. This won't let me. I'm sorry, Carrie. I didn't mean to go over it.
That's okay. You can be doing that behind the scenes if you want.
Yep.
Although I was going to ask if you would. You had mentioned that the Flexbox container was a big topic in the community meetup. Was there anything of import that came out of that, or just people talking about it generally?
Well, I mean, I was in one of the networking rooms. I was hosting with one of the developers. I was in the developer
Right.
networking room in case anybody went to that one. But, so I got to talk to him, um, and I was asking him some questions. Okay, so I posted my code in there, but you're gonna have to look at it because where one ends, it kind of repeats itself, so you might have to fix it. So don't take it and use it right away. You need to fix what's repeating.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Okay. So, but we talked about. I was asking him, a lot of questions about it, and how close it was to being released and everything, and that was pretty close, or at least he was telling me. And obviously we got a post today about it, and so it's getting close to being released, but it's still in the beta. Um, in the experiments, if you guys use the developer, if you have a sandbox or something to play with, you can download the Elementor Developer Edition, and it's in there, so you can play around with it. So a bunch of us talked about it. It was a huge topic for a while, and the other topics I would say dealt around. Oh, I can't. It was very little. Oh, actually, their online documentation is being upgraded. So all of their documentation is going to be brand new and more in depth and better. That's what they're saying. So.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Okay. All righty. So we've gotten through about an hour or so. Now we generally like to keep some time set aside for any questions that anybody might have. Does anybody have any questions? Something they've been working on but can't figure out?
I have a question about what do you do? You finish a project, you've gotten a couple things, you've set up your Elementor Pro, built the site, it's all good. You hand it off. I'm just curious what other people do when they get, I have a couple plugins like Elementor Pro where I won't buy one each of the site because I have like I got in when the 1,000 sites thing was still good.
Right.
So of course I'm just gonna leave it on there. But the question is, I'm just curious what everyone else does about that. Do they just leave it in? I mean, I know if you you can leave Pro on there, not have it licensed, and then you just can't add anything else, and it won't break
You
what
can't
you put up.
update it.
It won't break anything that you put there. But of
Right.
course, you won't get updates, and at some point that becomes a security liability.
Well, and it's
so,
going to break eventually because WordPress keeps advancing, so it will break eventually. Yeah.
So, I don't know. Do you just, I considered, I have like my work email address as my Elementor email address, but that is one of the things that gets left behind when you look at the Elementor licensing. So I thought maybe I'll just make a sort of an email alias. But I'm just wondering, what does everyone else do in that situation? I find myself just leaving the Pro up and leaving my license there because I'll probably get called back to fix a thing or something like that. But I'm just curious what other professional folks do about that, or any other professional plugins that you have.
Well, what I tend to do when for older customers that I've had for a long time, or maybe they're friends or something, I have the unlimited license. Well, it says 1,000. When I bought it, it said unlimited, but then it went down to 1,000. I have that, and there's no way on earth I'm gonna never have 1,000 sites.
Yeah.
So for legacy clients and for people that are, for nonprofits and, special cases, I just leave it on. But in the last year or so, the way it works now is I tell people it's just a little lever to help with maintenance plans. Because I'll tell people that, explain about how important it is to keep everything up to date. But built into the maintenance plan are all these plugin licenses. And I have a sign of dollar value to it. But as long as they stay on the maintenance plan, they get those licenses for free, which adds up to more than the actual cost of the license. Well, not on a month-to-month basis, but anyway. But if they decide, well, I don't think I want to pay for a maintenance plan, I said, okay, well, you'll need to buy a new license for Elementor Pro. Buy your own license for Elementor Pro or any other things, because I will disconnect my license from it. But that's all put up front. I haven't gone back to people I never said that to and told them this, because that would be kind of mean. But now when I set people up, I tell them when I'm bringing somebody on, I'll tell them about the maintenance plan, and that built into it is these licenses that I'll pick up the tab for as long as they're on the maintenance plan. And that's kind of how I do it. How does somebody else do it?
So I charge my client upfront for the licenses that I know they're going to be using, and then again I do kind of something similar. If they're on my what I call my website care plans, they'll retain those and they won't have to pay that. But if they're not on the care plan, I have and I just automatically renew everything for them, but I charge them for it. So I charge like the $49 for the plugin. Right. But I do a lot of WooCommerce stuff. So my actual clients run either about 1,200 to almost 1,500, depending on what plugins they have. So it's just, I think it just depends on, is it worth billing your client $49 a year if that's all you have on the site? But I have more than that. I have a lot of WooCommerce stuff and plugins that I have to maintain and stuff for my clients. So I charge them upfront when I'm building, and then if they're on my website care plan, then I take care of them. But if they're not, then I just repeat the bill until they just don't want to, me to do anything for them anymore. But normally everybody's on a care plan with me.
Yeah, you try to do that as much as possible. So.
Yeah, I mean, I am interested. I do try to. I mean, I had a ton of clients yet, but to tell them I do the maintenance for them as well. I mean, I have had a client. They're like, "Oh yeah, no, I want to do it myself," but then he just comes back to me. So,
Yeah,
so
they
I mean,
think they want to do it themselves. They don't
and they
realize
don't,
what they have to do.
which I'm glad for. I mean, I'm happy for them to come back and make more money
Yeah.
off them.
Well,
But yeah,
what
I'm
the
still sort
danger,
of figuring out this sort of like a good way to talk about a maintenance plan without I don't want to scare them off, like go, all right, well, that's going to be probably what, maybe $150 of plugins on top of whatever I'm going to charge them for a site, I guess. I don't know. I guess I'm afraid of thinking it that way because I don't want to like scare them off. Like, oh, well, I'll go find someone who just does websites using HTML and CSS.
Carrie mentioned Dave Foy, and I've also worked with another person called Troy Dean. He's in Australia.
oh yeah,
I did his class. It's called WP Elevation, and I took a
me
lot
too.
of I took a lot of his stuff on. He actually was the first one I heard about website care plans from, and so I took a lot of I copied a lot of his stuff, which he gave us permission to do so. So I was concerned about that too, about approaching people. But he has a great way of introducing that, and because I was scared to do that, I just copied how he did it, and now I'm used to it. Used to introducing that to my clients as well, and I usually write that into my contract, what their options are. So I bring it up when we're discussing their contract for me to build their site. So I don't wait for it afterwards. I tell them, you want your site protected, especially for WooCommerce people. I mean, the last thing they need is for their site to go down because they have a store, right? So most of them are going to buy that website care plan. So I know it's probably more difficult to sell it to someone who mostly has a static site and doesn't have a lot of programming in the background and stuff. But most of my WooCommerce people, it's really easy to sell a website care plan because a lot of their stuff is specialized, and I customize a lot of their plugins for them. So
there's a lot of complexity with e-commerce too. Yeah, so far I've just been doing more basic sites, but I can see that would be easier to sell with. I mean, e-commerce is. I haven't done an e-commerce site yet, and I'm not sure how excited I am to try one because it seems like just a monstrosity. But I'll work up to it.
Yeah, it is complicated, and to be the truthful or reality, WordPress really wasn't meant for that. I mean, WooCommerce does a good job in working around it, but I mean, you really are kind of limited. I think I've heard different things, but I think you're limited to how big a store you can have.
No, not anymore. No? Not anymore. I mean, I think it depends on what kind of server you have. If there's going to be any limitation, it's going to depend on what you're being hosted on. If you have a great service plan and you have a good host, there's pretty much no limitation.
Would you have to have a dedicated server, you think?
And that would depend on how many products you have.
Yeah, because I use WP Engine, and they've got pretty zippy machines. Mm-hmm. But I'm not built.
With something like Cloudways too, I use Cloudways. You could just pick up a new server, and it's a cloud-based.
Right. Yeah, you get to choose between different form.
Right. You could just start a whole new server if you had a pretty
server.
big client.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
definitely, you don't want your WooCommerce store on a regular WordPress hosting. You want it on a managed WooCommerce hosting. So when you're looking for that, anybody that is interested in that, You look for managed WooCommerce, not WordPress. So.
Yeah, and actually, I'm not y'all may know of other. I know WP Engine has managed WooCommerce. I imagine some of the other places do too.
Yeah.
Is that the sort of thing where you would want your own server, or is a shared server okay?
Again,
or it really
depends on
depends
how many products. Like I have a client, a local client. I live in Galveston, so it's not that big of a city, but it's it's close to Houston. So, but I have a client. They just opened a bagel store, so they've got about 13 products on their store. So that's the smallest store I've ever built. But they're I have them hosted on a managed WooCommerce plan with Nexus. I don't know if y'all have heard of Nexus, but they're outside of they're in Houston. And but I have another client who has over 1,000 products, but I have them hosted on a Pantheon server, and I'm not sure if y'all have heard of that name either. But that's more of a high end. So there's two different way depending. It always depends on how many products. You have to ask that question: how many products are you going to sell? Some people only sell one product and don't even need WooCommerce. If you're selling one product, I would tell people, well, you don't need WooCommerce to sell one product. So it is a power horse. So be careful about what you're setting up WooCommerce for.
Sure.
Yeah. So cool. Well, back to your question about the plugins. In addition to what I told you, I will. There are some sites that I'll build that require specialized plugins. Like, although now Elementor features and Elementor Pro features and that can help take care of it, but this was built a couple of years ago. Was for a real estate company, and well, actually they were real estate developers, and they wanted to have a page of their properties, and they wanted to have a at least on the first page you'd see would be a list of properties, kind of like an archive post list of their properties with formatted information, and then of course it'd be paginated, but on the left hand side they wanted to have ways to filter the properties, whether it be by the sales representative, the average household income between 1 mile, 3 miles, 5 miles, and just a whole bunch of stuff. And some of the filters were just pressing a checkbox, and some are with sliders. And that's gotten more mainstream now. But back then, we had to get a plugin that was Facets WP and WP Search. Is that one?
Yeah, WP
anyway,
Search. Yeah.
And I wasn't using those on any other site, so I told the customer that they had to buy the plugin, the license, and then I'm not responsible for renewing it. And if it's something that I use a lot and it justifies for me to buy a large, essentially a developer's license, one that you can use on unlimited sites or 1,000 sites, I'll comp some of those. But if it's a one-off deal or one that, like, there's a little tiny plugin, it only costs $14 a year. It's called Diddy Post Ticker that I've used on 3 or 4 sites, where it kind of gives a little news feed across the page. I have them pay for it because, it's such a small plugin. I don't even think they have a thing where you can buy it for 50 sites or whatever, and I'm not going to use it for 50 sites. So it really kind of depends. So
Yeah, and if you, I mean, just a word of advice. I mean, if you guys get like a client that you don't think is going to be on a maintenance plan or something, just tell them, I need a credit card to buy your licenses, and tell them what license, so that way you can set up their plugins in their name so that they get that renewal and you don't. So
Right,
that's how I solve that issue. If that client's never going to come back to me, then they're going to pay for everything, and I'm just going to tell them up front, well, I'll need a credit card so that we can set up, and I'll tell them, this is up front, this is what you're going to be paying for, and
right.
so,
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Anybody had any interesting?
Sorry, I was looking for that WP Elevation. It turns out they are now.
Oh, they're called
Agency Mavericks.
Yeah,
but I'll cut and paste. I'll put that in the chat because I just looked it up. I wanted to find that. I'll put it in the chat for that.
Yeah, they've been around a while. I guess
Yeah.
it's probably about 5 years or so that I was part of it, and the thing with the care plan, Christina Romero took that and ran with it.
Yeah.
And she's got a whole company based on that. WP Care Market, I think it's called.
I think so, yeah.
What's that called?
And WP, I think it's called WP Care Market. And she has courses on how to set up your business to manage your maintenance plans. Shows you how to hook it up to your CRM, to Airtable, and some other stuff to run that part of the business. And she's got it down to a science.
WP Care Market? I think I found it.
Yeah. Well, Troy, if you enroll in the WP Elevation, you'll hear about all of this. They try not to dump everything on you at one time, but eventually you're gonna hear about some of these, like the people that Carrie's mentioning, and then there's going to be some other things as well. But he's really good, and he has some bonus packages that he includes with this program. So if you're just starting out, it's really good because it's really a good intro on how to run your web business. And he has really got it down pat.
Yeah, it's not about building websites. It's about running a web business. Yeah.
Yeah, that part I'm just sort of figuring out piecemeal. So it would be nice to have. And I come across that guy you mentioned earlier, but like you said, he's on to
Webflow.
Webflow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I found him
I learned
right as he left that. He's like, I'm shutting this down.
Yeah.
So I'll check out this other stuff. I appreciate that reference.
Yep. And has anybody worked on an interesting project recently?
I did a bagel shop.
A bagel shop, yeah.
I mean, that was interesting for me because I've been working on kilns for like the last year. So the bagel shop was like really fun.
On kilns?
Yeah, kilns, like ceramic, kilns that fire ceramics and stuff. Yeah, that's my big client is the kiln property. But the bagel shop was someone I picked up here locally, and that was fun because I actually got to do a small shop and really play with it and stuff. I got to set up deliveries and store hours and things like that. So, and also mix and match products. So, I don't know how many people are WooCommerce people on here, but there was a lot of things that I got to play with on that one. So I really liked it.
Cool. Well, it's fun to work on something different.
Yeah.
Seems like a lot of the stuff I do is software as service type things, SaaS products.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and then a number of them are, you kind of get, you do one thing and it turns out good, and then the people in that industry talk to other people in that industry, and it seems like that's all you're doing is this particular kind of thing. But some of it, it pays the bills. Some of it's kind of boring, like it's maintenance, managed maintenance software for manufacturing plants, and there's a whole market on it. It's boring as hell to me, but it's I guess it's a big business.
Well, it sounds like one of those things that they talk about in building a business is to find your niche. It sounds like you found your niche.
Yeah, but I'm not wild about it. No, I'm
Well, they don't mention anything about will you be wild about finding your niche. They just say find your niche.
Well, that's the key in any business that you run, because there is a lot of competition, and I guess in this day and age of everything that we're going through with COVID and a lot of people leaving their jobs, us freelancers, there's probably going to be a lot more competition as well. So having a niche is really going to be very important for a lot of us.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how I think about that, because I'm not sure how long all y'all been doing. I've been doing this since late 90s, mid to late 90s, and having, it was, well, maybe it was even more of the Wild West in the beginning, because nobody knew how to do anything, and everything was being made up as we went along. So a kid in college would probably know more than you because he's in college. But I guess I've told people, who have talked about wanting to get into this particular business, to think about it, and think about it hard, because to jump into this business with no experience would be really hard. No connections, no base, to work from. Because I've been, I started out doing this with working as a designer, basically, for a startup development company back in 1995, and fortunately the guys who owned it were really super sharp. They're both Georgia Tech guys. One of them used to work for NASA, and so and there really was no such thing as a web designer. There was nothing to design. I don't know if you went on the web in 1995. It was all text.
And Netscape. Did you do Netscape?
Oh yeah, Netscape, and what was the one Mosaic?
Mosaic, yes, yeah.
I think that's the oldest one I can think of. But so, but as
HTML
I worked for them,
is hypertext. Yeah, I remember that. They're basically like cue cards. It was like connected to each other.
Hypertext markup language. I remember that.
Yeah.
But over time, working with them, I made connections with people. I have a customer now that used to be a customer of theirs, that I've been building websites for her, for their different companies, for 21 years. The same lady. And because she used to work for a big marble manufacturing company in Gainesville, and we did their website, and she left, and now she's into custom real estate, doing really custom built homes, and she's doing that, and so I'm doing stuff for her. So some of these relationships, it's like any other kind of thing. Relationships really make a big difference. And
True.
But it works better for my personality, because I'm not. Brian and I were talking about this last week. I'm not a big salesy guy. Like Troy Dean, he's a real salesy guy. That's not me. I try to sell myself by the work I do.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't have the big sales bug.
Yeah.
I have to, and yeah, I mean, that's why I like being in this business, because and I haven't been in it long, but that's why I like the independent web stuff, because it's, you can just do your work and then, but yeah, it does mean I need help with some of those salesy parts that help you run and grow a business. It's very important.
Yeah. And it's always a moving target as to what actually works in our business to sell. You know, I do work for some marketing firms, and they're all into doing the SEO and the keyword research and all this kind of stuff. And you know, I am not convinced that makes that big a difference. I believe if you create good content and make good content often, that's the best way to draw attention and traffic. But I'll see people spending thousands on. If you're a big company, SEO can make a difference. But you know, $1,200, $2,000 a month on SEO and their business, they're only clearing $100,000 a year, where they're spending too much money on it.
Yeah, SEO does make a difference. I've learned. I usually stay out of that part too. I don't want to do it, but I've been forced to do it with my kiln people. I have learned from doing it that makes a difference for their products, because just from doing the SEO for the products, I've increased the traffic, and I haven't even done anything to advertise it on Google or Facebook or anything, but just the SEO, and it's increased the traffic.
Yeah, I do the basic. I do the basic stuff. They tell you all the, name your images right, to do all the setup with the site meta, and getting your page titles to a certain length, and but I don't do the whole keyword research. That is a whole other.
Well, that's a ton of work. I've done that, and I guess at the end of the day,
it is.
It makes it at the end of the day. I guess it just isn't worth it, because
I don't think so. In fact, I'll tell you, I didn't do any keyword research because the company, he had a lot of distributors before we put this website together, and so his distributors were actually the ones selling the product. But now he wants the website to sell the product. He's trying to take the distributors out of the picture, which, don't ask me, that's his decision. But the fact that his distributors are selling his name, he's competing against his own keywords because his distributors had it way before he did.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, I think with the SEO, that the amount of work that you have to put into it the basic stuff is one thing, but what SEO, like Ahrefs, the YouTube channel, they go into all this kind of stuff, and there's all these tools that SEMrush, and that's the one that comes to mind. There's a bunch of them like it. They're cost a lot of money. Screaming Frog. I use that for a while. It's just data overload. It's like
it is,
and I see that it can build traffic, but that's one part of the package. But it's not just about traffic. You've got to convert, and I'm not sure SEO does that. I mean, SEO can help get people to your site, but when people spend thousands of dollars on SEO, they want to be seeing a return on their investment, and return on their investment in most customers' mind is not, oh well, I have an extra 2,000 people coming to my website each month. It's, I want to see I'm making an extra $10,000 every month.
Sure. Well, and then you know
can't.
some of that SEO work is long game. Like if
Yeah.
someone
Oh, yeah,
comes to
absolutely.
you with bad SEO, and or if someone goes to like an SEO specialist, and they're like, "Help me!" Like the thing is, they're not going to see much. They could make all the changes, like recommended changes right away, and then have a plan for doing it, but you're going to see a very incremental change in your search results show up. So
I've heard
that's
a
the
lot
other
of
thing with
people
SEO.
say,
That's like a long game type of
I've heard a lot of people say that don't really expect to see a significant difference if it's going to work for 6 months.
Right.
Although I've known people that have seen some results in 3 or 4 months, but that's because things were so bad before that anything would have helped.
Right. Anything. Yeah. Just basic. Yeah.
So, well, we're getting close to the end of our allotted time. Is there any final questions or comments or suggestions? Y'all have any suggestions as to what kind of topics y'all would like to talk about or see next time?
Are y'all not having a December Christmas party?
We're coming to yours.
We haven't talked about it, actually, to tell you the truth.
Well, mine is on the 12th.
We'll be there.
If you're coming to mine, it's on the 12th.
Be there.
Okay, take a look at that. So you're having a Christmas themed meetup?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
You did one last year too, didn't you?
Say what?
You did it last year as well, didn't
you? Yes, I did. Yeah.
What's your meetup, Sharon?
It's a Dallas Elementor.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. So.
Yeah, if anybody, the invitation is for anybody. If y'all want to go to Dallas on the Elementor website or Elementor community site for events, just look for the Dallas Dallas one, and it's Sunday the 12th. I think it's the 12th. Let me just double check that. But it's a Sunday afternoon. It's the 12th. So it's a Sunday afternoon. My time is 3 o'clock, so it'll probably be what, 2 o'clock. Wait.
2 o'clock.
Yeah.
2 o'clock.
We're just an hour difference. Yeah.
2 o'clock is those.
Do you find, I've wondered about this, about attendance to meetups do you find that, I don't know if you've experimented with this, do you find that you get better attendance?
Carrie, you want to stop the recording?
Oh yeah, you might want to stop the recording.
Yeah.
Well, to answer your question, this is my first weekend one that I'm doing. So mine is normally on the 3rd Tuesday of the month.